enough. I think that's probably one of the most difficult words to define in our language. How much is enough? How much is enough for me? How much is enough for you? I think we probably all have a different definition of how much is enough. And for some of us, that definition might be, it's never enough. Well, today we're going to continue the sermon series on the Gospel of John, the Untold Story, the stories that only John tells us about Jesus' life. And today, it's a well-known story. It's the story of when Jesus did something amazing, when he raised a person from being dead. That person was Lazarus, and Lazarus had two sisters, Mary and Martha. And these three siblings were some of the closest people to Jesus. They were part of his inner circle. Whenever he visited their town, he stayed with them. When he needed a respite, a break, he would stay with them. They were his closest friends. So you can imagine when Mary and Martha send a message to Jesus saying that Lazarus is sick. And it's not just a common cold type of sick. They said he's so sick, he's at the point of death. Now imagine if you got a message saying that your best friend is at the point of death, how would you respond? Because Jesus didn't respond the way we normally would. He did some things differently, and that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at the three things he did that kind of shake things up a little bit. You see, the first thing he did was he delayed. He waited. He didn't go right away. That's what we would do. We would get that message, and we would drop whatever we're doing and go to be there with our best friend. But Jesus didn't. He delayed and he waited. And as a result, Lazarus died. He went through whatever the suffering was that was at the end of his life. He went through that pain and that suffering. And not only that, Mary and Martha went through it. They had to sit there and watch their brother die. And you can imagine they were probably sitting there thinking, where's Jesus? I thought he was our best friend. We brought him into our house. Why isn't he here? Why? That's probably what we would think, though. The difference, though, that Jesus knew why. He knew what he was going to do. He knew that he was going to raise him from the dead, but they didn't. They suffered. Lazarus died. So why? Why did Jesus delay? Because he knows the whole picture. From the beginning to the end, he knows what's going to happen. He knew in Lazarus' life, and he knows in our life. So, what is he delaying on in your life? What in your life do you think he needs to step in right now and solve? What is it? And the bigger question is, can you trust him in this delay? As you're sitting there waiting, wondering why he isn't acting, can you trust him? Is he enough? Second thing Jesus did, which is probably the memory verse for those of us raised in church that we always hoped we got, Jesus wept. Now, the English language doesn't do this justice. This isn't a normal weeping. I always kind of pictured it as Jesus standing there with a single tear rolling down his cheek. That's not what the original language tells us. It says he was deeply moved, he was troubled, he wept. That term, deeply moved, portrays such emotion that it's like a horse snorting and heaving. Have you ever seen someone crying so bad that they can barely get air out? They can't get words out there. They're heaving and snorting. That is the picture of Jesus. And then that word troubled is to be stirred up, to be agitated to have your world turned upside down, to be an emotional wreck. And then even that word wept. This is the only time in the entire New Testament that that Greek word for wept was used. And it's not the normal word for crying. There's other words for normal crying, but this is a forceful crying, almost to burst into tears. So imagine Jesus standing there. Lazarus has died, and Jesus is crying so uncontrollably that he's heaving, snorting. He's bursting into tears, which, as I thought about it, I wondered, why? I mean, Jesus knew what he was about to do. He could raise Lazarus from the dead. Why was he such an emotional wreck? And I think it had less to do with Lazarus dying and more to do with Jesus' mission on this world. You see, I think at that moment, Jesus was viewing all of the death, all of the disease, all of the pain that ever was, ever will come into this world. I think at that moment, he was seeing all of that pain and suffering, and he couldn't help but break down. You see, the third thing that Jesus then did, he raised Lazarus from the dead, which just goes to prove one of those great I am statements we looked at a couple weeks ago. He said, I am the resurrection and the life. He raised Lazarus from the dead, but first he asked Martha if she believed. And it was after she said, yes, I believe, it was after that he raised Lazarus back to life. You see, we can trust him. No matter what's going on in our life, we can put our trust in Jesus. You see, ultimately, this is a story about faith. Faith in Jesus. See, we may not know why something is happening in our life or why something has happened in our life. We may not know why, but we can trust the one who does know why. See, he knows the why, and he also feels our pain. He weeps with us. He cries with us. He knows what we're going through. And he is enough. You see, that's the definition we should all have for the word enough. It's not possessions. It's not money. If you want a definition for the word enough, it's simply this: Jesus is enough. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, click below. You can also comment below. Subscribe to our channel and also hit that notification bell so you'll know whenever we post a new video. Again, hope it was an encouragement, and welcome home.